Hey guys, how you doing? Hope you're doing okay. Gonna read through the full article here. There's a link in the description if you'd rather go through that in your good self. And I will mention that this is quite the department from the typical topics that I cover. I'm normally covering death, murder, abuse, hideous situations, very, very dark topics. If you're new to the channel, have a look around. This subject, however, is quite joyful, I find. So we're going to look through the full details. A teaching assistant has won more than £7,000 after she was unfairly sacked for giving a young pupil a hug while trying to calm him down. So the teaching assistant in question is called Sabrina Willmott, and she was judged to have abused her position of trust by embracing a child with special needs when she thought that the child with special needs was about to have a physical outburst and possibly do himself some harm. So, she gave him a hug. That's what led her to be dismissed. She was later alleged to also have kissed the nursery-age pupil, an employment tribunal heard. She denied this allegation, yet she was still sacked for gross misconduct. I have no problems with this teacher at a primary school hugging one of the students. I got no issue with that whatsoever. I'm not a parent. I don't know too much about kiddywinkles and all of this. But hugging a child, really, come on. Like, isn't that a nice thing to do if you're a teacher, and there's nothing untoward going on? And especially if it's a child with special needs that is likely or, could possibly have a physical tantrum, hurt themselves. I mean, it just seems like the right thing to do. The right thing to do meaning the kind thing to do, the helpful thing to do. I'll say the Christian thing to do, I'll say the Christian thing. Maybe that's not an appropriate thing to say, but I just said it. The kissing, well, I mean, seemingly she says the kissing didn't happen. But even that, I mean, it's an expression of caring for someone, isn't it? I mean, obviously it wasn't kissing with tongues and whatever. It wasn't an inappropriate kiss, we would imagine, if it did occur. I mean, she says that it didn't occur, but, I mean, if it's just an expression of care, I don't know if I have a problem with that. I don't think I do have a problem with that. I think Sabrina Willmott was unfairly dismissed, and so did the judge, apparently. So her former employer's Pioneer Learning Trust have been ordered to pay Mrs. Willmott £7,257 in compensation after she won a case of unfair dismissal. So first off, well done, Mrs. Willmott. I will say, though, I don't think £7,000 is enough. That's not enough. It's not punishment enough. If you want these guys to suffer actual consequences, then it needs to be a bigger payout. And if you want to reward someone or award somebody who has lost their source of income, who's had their career disrupted, I personally don't feel £7,000 is enough. I would have doubled, tripled, quadrupled that amount if it were up to me. The tribunal, held in Watford, England, heard that Mrs. Willmott started working as a level 1 teaching assistant at Whitefield Primary Academy in Luton, Bedfordshire, in January 2016. In October 2019, she was assigned to a child in the school's nursery who required support from a teaching assistant because of his special needs. Okay, so she's been there for 3 years, close to 4 years. So she's got quite a bit of experience with her. If she was such a bad employee, she could have been gotten rid of at any time prior to that, presumably. In January 2020, as a result of the pupil's behaviour, the nursery teachers asked that he be removed from the main room to the separate nest room to be supervised. Okay, so apparently this child was disruptive, purposefully or otherwise. So, the teachers have a little group meeting and say, right, okay, well, we can't disrupt all of the other children. That's unfair of them. So we're going to ask this troubled special needs child to go in a separate area so that he doesn't disturb others. I mean, I guess that's the normal thing to do, the reasonable thing to do. I don't know. I've never been a teacher or such. But that makes sense to me, seems reasonable enough. And Mrs. Willmott was asked to continue to work with the child in the nest. The tribunal heard that 2 days later, Mrs. Willmott asked the child to do something, and he reacted badly to the request. The teacher, or teaching assistant rather, said she was concerned he was going to physically harm himself, and then she placed her arms around him in a hug to prevent a physical outburst, to intervene before an outburst commenced. Okay, well, I mean, that seems like a normal thing to me. If you think that a child is going to have an outburst, and if you think that a hug, a show of kindness, a show of warmth, and it's probably more than that for those with special needs, I believe. You know, I mean, they literally have dogs that hug children, you know, or try to hug children, you know. It's has an effect, a positive effect on those that have these special needs. So it seems like the right thing to do for me. The following Monday, a meeting was called after a local authority safeguarding officer raised concerns about the hugging incident. What a fucking knob. Pardon my French, but what a fucking knob this local authority safeguarding officer seems to be. Excuse me, Mrs. Willmott, did you apply physical contact to a child that required physical contact to stop them from harming themselves? It's absolute craziness. Mrs. Willmott was told an allegation had been made against her, that she had behaved inappropriately towards the child by hugging him and kissing him. Oh, come on. Inappropriately? How? I mean, if it was sexual, then yeah, that would be inappropriate. I mean, is there even the slightest hint that this was a sexual act? I don't think there is. So what's inappropriate about it? Fucking bullshit. She strongly and vehemently denied that she had kissed the child, but admitted embracing him, adding she had hugged the child to calm him down because he was really upset. Well, good. I'm glad you did that, Mrs. Willmott. That shows that you've got some brains. You did the right thing, the reasonable thing, the instinctive thing, and you helped the situation. Well done. The tribunal heard that Mrs. Willmott was very distressed by the allegation, yeah, I should imagine so, of kissing because of the various serious ramifications it could lead to. As a result, she was signed off work by her GP with acute stress. Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, you know, if I'm presuming innocence here, and if she's just like a nice lady that's decided to focus her career on helping the community, helping children, I mean, that to me shows kindness. And sure, there's some naivety in what I'm saying there. I've read through some articles, several actually, of childcare centre workers. There's one the other day I did, perhaps I'll pop a link to it, or perhaps have a look around my channel. There's one from a daycare worker who ripped the hair off a 1-year-old. There's been a couple of cases like this, you know. We've seen little videos of extremely abusive daycare workers. And we've seen or read about daycare facilities, childcare facilities, covering up the actions of their workers. I mean, there was another one who was having an illegal daycare operation. One of the childs died. It was strapped, all of the children were strapped into a car seat. And then the daycare worker went out for half an hour or something, and one of them died. It had swallowed something, if I recall. I mean, these things happen. Regrettably, you know, when these things happen, meaning there are some daycare workers out there that are grossly negligent, you know, abusive, literally abusive, you know, applying physical abuse. This lady here, Mrs. Willmott, she's none of those things. She performed a caring act, an act of love. Come on. What the fuck is going on? So yeah, I can imagine that being incredibly stressful for her, to have that ripped away, for her to be shamed in such a way. It's terrible. And I hope this turns around for her. I hope the community gets behind her. I hope she's able to not only move on from this, but be rewarded for her kindness. Her, yeah. Anyway, so back to the article. Where are we? In February 2020, another teaching assistant told bosses she saw Mrs. Willmott get on her knees, put the pupil's coat on, talk to him, do up his coat, and give him a kiss on the right cheek. I don't see anything wrong with that. I can understand why the teacher may feel that that's a dangerous allegation to have been made against her, but I wouldn't view it as dangerous at all, personally. I mean, it's just an expression of sweetness. There's no impropriety there. I don't like the suggestion of impropriety when none exists. It's unfair. It's irrational. It's unreasonable. The witness said that she did not see anything else, and added Mrs. Willmott was very touchy-feely and that it was usual for her to cuddle the child. I mean, again, as long as there's nothing sexual going on, or if she's not infatuated with any of the children, and I don't think there's been any suggestion of either of those two things, she's just been nice. All right, a disciplinary meeting was held over Zoom, and the kissing allegation was dropped due to insufficient evidence. However, she was still sacked. In the letter confirming her dismissal, it was stated it was the responsibility of all staff to ensure that they did not abuse or appear to abuse their position of trust and extend relationships beyond what was considered to be professional and acceptable. Okay, I mean, that seems reasonable enough, I feel. But again, I mean, to me, if the teacher, in this case or in other cases, if they have untoward feelings towards the child, that would be weird. I guess if they fostered untoward feelings within the child towards them, that would be equally weird and equally avoidable. So I mean, I guess that's perhaps where the reasoning comes from. But even so, just an act of kindness to someone that needs it. I don't know, man. I mean, shouldn't we have more of that? This lady, honestly, she should go on Dragon's Den. She should get a £200,000 investment, start her own daycare centre, where the teachers are allowed to be friendly towards their children that they look after. That's my view. I'm guessing that maybe my view is controversial, seeing as these guys found it acceptable to fire her in the first instance. I accept that it is likely that Mrs. Willmott should have been wary of inviting the child for a hug, and that she was aware of the risks associated doing this. I do not accept that hugging would always amount to gross misconduct. Accordingly, I find that Mrs. Willmott was unfairly dismissed. Okay, well, I appreciate that from the employment judge. The hugging incident did not amount to gross misconduct. So look, that's good. I'm glad this woman, this lady, I'm literally glad that she did what she did, because that's just a kind act in my mind. Nothing improper about it at all. In fact, I would guess that it's very touching and very helpful for the child, not only in that moment, but it's just like some niceness to a child that has special needs. Come on, how are we going to criticize that? So I'm glad she's been given compensation. I think it's too little. I think she should have been awarded more than that. And again, I really hope that her mentality, I mean this sincerely, hopefully her mentality, her reputation recovers and bounces back, and she deserves a big pat on the back from those around her. Really, those other learning facilities could benefit from showing her the support, getting on board with how she behaved. Look, I've seen on the internet, I think TikTok or Reddit or wherever, you see these little videos I've seen several which I believe are from Asian countries, Japan maybe, Thailand maybe, but also some Western ones where the teachers, as the kids line up to go into class, the teachers, there's a little sign next to the door with 3 or 4, 5 or 6 different images on the little sign, and the kids touch or point towards one of the images, and then the teacher gives them a greeting accordingly. So the child touches hug, so they get a hug. The child touches the dance symbol, and the teacher does a little dance. They, kiss. I'm quite sure that that's one that I've seen in one of these little videos, and it's so touching. And I'm quite sure I've seen several of those, mostly from Asian teachers, but also I think some Western ones. It's just a little bit of fun and a little bit of warmth within the classroom. How can that be a bad thing? I know I've rambled. Perhaps this has been interesting, perhaps it isn't, but I'm posting it anyway. So I'll thank you for your time. But again, if you are new to the channel, please do stick around, like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Have a look at some of the other topics, but I will warn you, they get a lot darker than this one.